Hi everybody, Beth here from Access Paranormal for the very first I Want to Know for 2019 at this time of the recording. Hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas break and New Year, and I'm so excited to get back into the swing of things. I've missed everybody, and it's been a great time off as well, but really excited about getting back into it as well. So good to see everybody again. So this topic, the one that's going to kick it off for 2019, is can spirits actually communicate with you in your sleep? Now, some people might kind of eye roll with this. Some people might think, oh, it's got some legitimacy to it. I think it's a really interesting question because I'll firstly go into a very brief look about how our brains work a bit. And then we'll actually look at the possibility of it maybe actually happening. Of course, we know at this point in time that ghosts and spirits don't exist, according to science, but we're talking about if they did, and they were people that of us that have actually passed, my phone's haunted, have actually passed on, what would happen if that was the case. So, hey, Paul, good to see you here. So, can spirits communicate to you in your dreams? A lot of people have had experiences, and I know that when I've dealt with private cases, I've found that a lot of times there's been people who've had people that have recently passed on talk about the fact that they've had loved ones come through and actually communicate with them through their sleep and through their dreams. Happy New Year, ladies, as well. It's good to see you, gorgeous. So that's one thing as well. There was also a comment that was made just before I went to air. I know it sounds very fancy pants. From Blair Christie, lovely person who's actually been following for a little while. And he made a really good point and said the worst part of dreaming about a spirit visiting you could be in your final sleep, or it can be a premonition to your own death. So that's a bit morbid, I know. But he makes a really good point. Maybe if you're actually dreaming of somebody who's passed on, maybe the fact that you're in the final stages of death yourself. So sometimes that can also be the case. It doesn't always have to be that someone's recently passed. It could be the fact that you might actually be passing as well. So hypothetically, just saying. So let's get back to the little parts. So we'll get to the parts about how our brains work a little bit when it comes to the whole dream state. We actually don't really know at this point in time why we actually dream. I know it might sound a bit strange, but at this point in time, we don't know why. Like, why do I dream of some random images? Like, I think it was the other night I was dreaming about being chased by planes, and I had to walk really plainly down the road or something rather, like really just random stuff. So, why would my brain dream of that? Why would I think of that in my nighttime? And yet some nights I don't. So we don't really know technically why we dream. For starters, hi Cara, good to see you, lovely one. Also, people have obviously heard over the years that, I talk about the sleep-wake state. So that's, falling asleep, waking up. The technical term is hypnagogic and hypnopompnic. Hypnagogic is when you're awake and you're about to go to sleep. Hypnopompnic is when you're actually asleep and about to wake up. And just how our bodies, just make sure we ain't acting out our dreams, because that would just get a little bit messy. And I think there'd be a hell of a lot more crimes committed probably if that was the case. So that's our body's way of making sure that shit don't go down in Chinatown. So there's that to keep in mind too. With those particular sleep-wake states, you do get visual hallucinations as well as audible and physical ones as well. Hi Mel. Oh Mel, you joined us. You're not there with your husband. So we have to kind of keep that in mind too when it comes to possible spirit communication, is the fact that maybe it could be a possibility of being sort of sleep paralysis. Is something to keep in mind. I'm sure it wouldn't explain every instance of that, of course, but that's just something to keep in mind as well. Also, there are 5 categories of your way your brain waves work, from being completely alert to being completely asleep. Now, I'd love to show you if I actually had time today to actually print it out. So I'm actually going to show it to you on another computer screen. It's a really good little snapshot of what the different stages are. And most of you probably would have heard of it before, but I'm actually going to try and turn the camera around a little bit because I've done this a couple of times. There we go. Right, here we go. So there it is. We've got here, this is really good. So that's the web address of where I got it from. So thanks to lucid.me/blog. This is a really good chart to actually have a squiz at. As I said, I'm a visual learner. Surprise, surprise. Delta, obviously practically asleep. You are asleep. Theta, alpha, beta, and gamma. So gamma is hopefully where I'm at the moment. But usually around here is really good for meditation. And a lot of people talk about meditating, and that's a really good spot to be in. But think about it. Your consciousness is basically shut down, so your subconsciousness is more alert. And that's what a lot of people will say is when, you know, the chances of a possible entity or spirit would want to come through and communicate will be a prime time when that actually happens. So there you go. As I said, it is lucid.me/. So for those who want to actually grab a copy of that image and also thank the person who's actually created it as well. I have also, Cara, you have zombie dreams. Interesting. Because I know you do a lot of dress ups and stuff like that. I know I've been watching a lot of horror movies and stuff lately, and I'm thinking that I'm always running from something in my dreams. I'm thinking if that was the case, I wouldn't need to go to the gym. But anyway, so those are the different stages that would help explain maybe the possibility, because as I said, your consciousness is very subdued, particularly when you get into a delta state for that particular thing. Now, research also suggests that our consciousness actually doesn't shut off completely. So we actually, even when you're in fully asleep, it doesn't shut off completely. Now, when I started to read a bit about this, I thought, hang on, well, how do you get rest then? But in sense of, it actually does make a bit of sense, because you know, we're built to survive, we're built to stay alive. So if your consciousness doesn't shut off completely, well, that would kind of make sense. And we really are built to make sure that we stay around for as long as possible. And we obviously talk a lot about that when it comes to paranormal investigating, because we're often investigating in the dark, which is a very, very, what would be considered quite a scary place to be in a primal perspective, hence the reason why your brain and your instincts will kick in and often give you false positives when it comes to possible visual and audible phenomena. Of The Walking Dead. Oh, no. I thought I was going to say it's supernatural. I'm like, I understand that. So there's that as well. Also, there is another state called dreamlessness. So I could have this weird dream about being chased and planes going by and walking across roads to make sure people can't smell fear. I know, just don't even ask. That could also be happening, but then at the same time, that dream doesn't go for the entire night, clearly. There is a time where I don't dream at all, and as obviously for anyone else. So that's dreamlessness state, and it's very different to you not remembering a dream. Literally, you could have a dream and not remember it, but this means nothing has happened in the middle. So there's also that as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, we don't really know why. Sometimes maybe the subconscious, or the conscious, I should say, just goes, I'm just going to give it a rest. We're done with this scene, for whatever reason, because we don't know why we dream. That could also be it as well. And also think about it where we try to remember our dreams. We're not going to remember everything, and if we did, it'd be enormously confusing, like hugely confusing. Hi Kaz, good to see you, everyone. You know, and that would be really, really confusing too, because think about it, if you had the capacity to remember every dream, but think about it in general life as well. What happened yesterday? If you remembered each and every part of what you did yesterday, your mind would be completely overwhelmed. So we have the capacity to be able to remember bits. Often it's probably the most intense for some people as well, but we remember tiny bits of it too. So that actually helps us be able to, you know, have as much room in our brain for learning and all sorts of other different things as well. I mean, even in the 21 years I've been alive, I couldn't possibly remember 21 years worth of memories and childhood and places I've visited and places I've investigated. So clearly I'd be very overwhelmed. So there's a reason why there's only snippets we'll actually remember of certain things. And a lot of people who are very big into the whole dream state or the symbolization of it, as well as possible spirit communication, really recommend that you have journals as well, but we'll talk about that a little bit soon too. So there's that as well. Some say that if you suddenly awaken, it could be because there's a possible spirit presence in your room. That's a really interesting one too. Again, if we're built to survive, that they could be possible. It could be plausible if there are energies and spirits of people that have passed on that will come into your room for whatever reason, whether it's somebody that you know or somebody you don't. The fact that you may wake up and be quite alert, it could be possible because we're built to survive. We do have that mechanism, so that could possibly be the case. We never know, but something interesting to keep in mind as well. Now, a lot of mediums will talk about, you know, say for instance, if you feel that you've had a spirit interaction while you've been sleeping, a lot of mediums will actually say, you know, it's usually through symbols or through a scene or maybe a word or something quite small, And I mean, from layman's person like myself, you know, it sort of walks in and go, well, if a spirit wants to talk to me through my dreams, why doesn't it have a conversation, sit down, have a chat, and I remember the whole thing? But apparently it may not work on quite the same way on the other side. It takes apparently a lot of energy for an entity to be able to come across, whether it's not in a physical form here on this plane, from what we know or can actually guess, but also on a spiritual perspective, on a sort of like, you know, when you're sleeping as well. So even though your consciousness is, you know, very subdued, even from that perspective, it may take quite a bit of energy for an entity to be able to communicate with you that way as well. So it has to be quick. So it's got to be a flash in the pan. It's got to be a symbol. It's got to be a word. It's got to be a scene or some sort of symbolization, because to be able to communicate takes a lot of energy. So that's one of the reasons why some people can be a bit confused, or what I've heard about why spirit entities will approach and try and communicate in that particular way. Now, of course, you've got to think about, well, what would my thoughts be on something like this? I'm intrigued, as particularly from, I mean, I've had a couple of instances where I think something might have come through. I don't know. Again, I take it with a grain of salt. It's very difficult when it's yourself you're analysing as opposed to other people. But from experiences when I've spoken to other people, to me, if entities were able to communicate with you freely, or at least at some capacity while you were sleeping, then why wouldn't it not be happening all the time? Is that some people are more susceptible to energies being able to come through in dreams than others. You know, I'm lucky if I could, you know, maybe 2 fingers, you know, 2 times. It may possibly, I think possibly have happened, if that at all. For other people, you know, I can imagine who are very intuitive or very consider themselves quite mediumistic, would actually almost feel like they have to fight them off every time they go to bed. And it's not just, you know, more down the road. It could actually be, you know, the biker dude up the street, or the angry guy, or the sad lady whose husband's passed and she doesn't know that she's dead. You know, could be. And I've heard a lot that there can be mediums and people psychic who really do have a disrupted sleep because, you know, they feel that there are spirit entities trying to communicate with them all the time. So maybe it's up to the person. Maybe I'm just not meant to have a chat with, you know, my grandfather or my grandmother. You know, maybe they're quite happy where they are and they don't want to have to talk. They're like, we're done, man. We're done with Earth. We're out of here. We're enjoying it. On the other side is way better. So, you know, I don't know. It could also be the case as well. Hi Peter, hi Adam, hope you guys are well. Thank you for joining. So there could be that as well. But for me, if somebody is feeling like they're having sort of spirit interaction through their dreams and they're quite prominent and they feel intense, write them down. So, you know, have that notepad by the bed and just write the details of it down, because you'd be surprised about what will come up, and also how frequently it would come up, or non-frequently. It might just be a one-off. It might just be like, no, that's the only time it's ever happened and never happened again. But write it down. Like I said, I've always been a big fan of people writing information down from experiences as they've actually happened. Highly recommend it. So that might be the best way to be able to track it and see if there's anything that does come through. We've got to be open-minded about this. Maybe there might be information there that could be quite interesting, that could be helping you in some way, or if there's a decision you need to make, or to warn you of something. You know, it'll be interesting to see if something comes up, or if it happens on Mondays only. You know, maybe the spirit realm door open goes, today, you know, it's like with Facebook, you know, now you can post your page on everyone's groups because Facebook pages are on Mondays. Maybe it's the same in the spirit realm. Maybe they just turn around and go, the door's open, everybody, have fun. It's going to be closed at midnight. So we don't know. You know, time is not linear. So you never know. Give it a shot. Write it down. See what information comes up. We're all here about learning as well. Hey, J-Man. So yeah, there's a couple of tips there. So a couple of interesting things like about how the brain works, how our minds work, the consciousness works as well, a little bit, as much as we know, again, as investigators and as a human race as well. So you know, be open to the experience, I think, as well. Be level-headed about it. Know the fact that we're built for, you know, to fight fear. Know that and to be alive, but also know at the same time that we have sleep-wake states. We can visually hallucinate. But again, you know, write it down, make notes of it. You'll never know. You might actually find something within that as well. Kat says, I've made similar suggestions to friends with dreams. Good thinking. Yeah, excellent. It's great. It's great. It's, you know, the best thing a paranormal investigator can ever have is a pen and paper. you know, a laptop at the least, or an iPad or something. So something that you can actually record, even a voice recorder. Some people just aren't writey people. You know, I actually type way quicker than I write. I find it weird sometimes to write down now because I'm so used to typing. So whatever works for you. So use that, record. Just the most important thing is to record the information. You never know what could happen from that. But thank you, everybody. I'd love to know your thoughts. Have you actually had what you feel has been a spirit communication? Has it been from somebody that you know? Because that's the most interesting part. Is spirit communication through dreams always somebody that we know? Does it can actually be somebody that we don't know more often? We don't, you know. I'd love to know. So let me know with your comments as well, and your thoughts about it too, about the afterlife. Why do you think spirits will come through only when you're trying to sleep? Or is that the best way? Or maybe they prefer when you're in locations and it's like the perfect storm where you just happen to be at the right place at the right time and you may have actually experienced something. So let me know either way in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for joining me for the first one for 2019, and I look forward to seeing you again. Take care.